Good evening, guys. So, welcome to our digital fireside with Cheeky Panda. These are intended to be kind of practical sessions where we kind of talk to guest speakers and understand a little bit about their journey and how they approach kind of purposeful leadership, for want of a better phrase. And I think Cheeky Panda is a really interesting set of people to talk to, because in case you hadn't realized from the conversation, they produce a variety of products: toilet paper, tissues, kitchen towel, wipes, nappies, available around the world, predominantly online, also through some traditional retailers as well, that are manufactured entirely from bamboo. And I know, you talked, Chris, about, it's 100% FSC certified by, Forestry Stewardship Council. Cruelty-free, et cetera, investing back into the rainforests. And you, Chris, are the co-founder. So I think we're going to really enjoy the conversation across the next kind of hour and a bit. I'm a bit worried because Chris said he might turn it into a proper conversation where he starts asking me questions.
Yeah, I did say I might flip it back to Alan. Yeah, if you ask me anything particularly tricky,
I'm not sure if that'd be more or less interesting for the group. But why don't we kick off? I'll just ask you just to explain a bit of the history of Cheeky Panda, and how did it come about, and why did you create it?
So Cheeky Panda was Julie's idea, and she was running her own business. She's sort of very entrepreneurial minded, and then she came to me in 2015 and said, "Why don't we make tissue from bamboo?" And I said, "Why would you do that?" And she went, "Well, it's the world's fastest growing plant." I said, "Well, that sounds interesting. Is it any good?" And then she went, "Yeah, it's really great. It's really soft. It's really smooth." I went, "All right, well, let's get some." And I think with Julie, I've always kind of got this sort of thing: if the idea sticks after 3 months, then it's something to take notice of. And yeah, I mean, we tried the products, and she was still getting very enthusiastic about it. And I said, "Well, all right, this is clearly it's a sustainable, ethical business." I said, "But we need to go to China." So we need to go and get ourselves over there. We need to go and look at the bamboo fields, look at the scale of the manufacturing as much as anything else, because I said, in tissue, you've got to sell a lot of tissue in order to make it a business. So I said, listen, we've always got to start with scale in mind and have good partners. So we went to China at the end of 2015 and went into the mountains, and it took us about 5 hours to get from the airport to where the factory was. And then the whole way was bamboo. So just imagine going from like London to Scotland and just seeing bamboo. I was just like, well, we're not going to run out of this stuff in a hurry. And if it grows back every year, then it's fantastic. And we got to a modern factory in it, cooperative farming. It was all up to code, and that's they provided accommodation for the people. Everyone was above living wage, and I just felt, and it's like Buddhist mentality in terms of like how they treat people and how they worked. And I went, this is just the perfect story. I said, well, we have to do this, because I also looked at the fact that food and drinks disrupted all the time, but tissue is one of those rare sectors that hadn't really had any sort of insight. And I sort of took my sort of business background and went, right, well, there's an opportunity here. And that's how the idea came around. And then rather than being the sort of chap that bought 2 containers of toilet tissue and then had them sitting in a warehouse for a couple of years, my friends would never let me live that down. I'd looked at what Brewdog had done, and I saw how successfully they'd done crowdfunding, and I thought, what a great way to market test a product, because if other people buy it having never tried it, then that definitely means there's a market. So that's what we did. We went to crowdfunder. And I said to Julie, I said, if we don't raise £10,000, we're not doing this business, because there's not a market there. So, and that was just a great way to get the business up and running. And yeah. And
then I mean, we've already talked about it, and in the comments section of the Zoom call, it's already getting some attention as well. Is that obviously we all get pandas from bamboo and so on, but where did the panda hats come from? Where as a thing, on the website, at every single award ceremony, the Zoom call, where did that come from?
Yeah, so that's my idea. And like when we started the brand, I kind of ended up buying lots of panda mugs and Panda placemats and stuff like that. And but I'm a great believer that this is a Richard Branson technique. This is always wear your brand. And if you look at Richard Branson, he's always like in front of a big Virgin sign, or he's always kind of got like Virgin stewardesses, or so I went, well, actually, if we're going to be a panda brand, why don't we be pandas? And the most wonderful thing about that is this hat has probably got me well over £1 million worth of free media. And when we've been in, like editorial where there's been several brands mentioned, they always use the picture with a panda hat. And if you're in a room, and particularly in the early days, like in 2016 and like early 2017, everyone would talk about you because everybody in the room just kind of sort of blends in. But then if you're standing out so differently, then even if people don't come and talk to you, and a lot of people just want to know why you're wearing a hat, people just come up to you. But even if they don't talk to you, they'll ask somebody, why are they wearing? So in a room, and you might be in a room for like an hour, you might have just got 200 people talking about your brand, and it's just a wonderful way to brand build.
And do you think we were touching on this just as everyone was coming into the call? Do you think the sustainability debate is too earnest? Do you think that it's all a bit kind of a bit earnest?
I think that people buy from what's good for them first. And then if it's good for the planet, then it gives them a nice warm feeling, and that's what makes it really sticky. But if you're not selling decent quality products, a really wonderful material, and it actually creates really high quality products. So it's one of those things that's good for you and good for the planet.
And the hats and the name and so on, I have an image of your office, which is just everyone is having a laugh, everyone's having fun. There's kind of everyone's playing basketball or whatever it is. Is it like that, or is it head down and people doing spreadsheets?
I mean, it is a bit more like a digital agency than what it is as a manufacturing brand. So I think that we're a purpose-driven organization. We one of our internal logos is have fun, get shit done. Get shit done first, then have fun. Is how we like to approach it. And yeah, it's kind of got like a work hard, play hard culture. And we're still a disruptor, so we're still fighting against people that have got huge budgets, £1 billion budgets. Teams of 100+ people in one product, and there's us and our, and we have to be creative, and we have to be imaginative, and we have to be have good willpower.
Yeah. And we were chatting just before everyone came on. I mean, a lot of these digital firesides we do with people in kind of third sector NGOs, all these sorts of things. And one of the reasons why I think Cheeky Panda is interesting is because it's a proper business. We don't often talk about in these chats proper businesses. But how do you get the balance between purpose, as you said there, and the fact that you also need to make a profit?
And particularly when you sort of scale, then the more you scale, and then the more products you add, then the more sort of churn you sort of put onto your bottom line. So it's a real balance between some things that we want to do, some things that we can't do today, some things that we want to do tomorrow, and picking and choosing your battles. And we use OKR after.
Chris, sorry, you cut out for a second there, so I don't think the last thing people heard probably was we use.
Oh yeah, we use OKR systems, which is like a rule of 5, because it in scale, you can get distracted by an awful lot of different shiny things that come your way, but you need to just kind of sort of stay focused. So we stay focused on things that can kind of move the dial. So whether that's things like packaging, or whether that's sustainability reports, or improving our B Corp score, these are all things that are tangible and meaningful. So it's just trying to sort of remain focused.
And have there been occasions where you were worried you might need to compromise your purpose and your principles?
I think we're always trying to improve, is what I would say. And I think if in the beginning when we started the toilet tissue, we had the products wrapped in plastic, and we had the option to wrap them in paper, and we said, well, everybody buys plastic toilet paper, so maybe changing bamboo and paper at the same time is probably a bit too much for people. So maybe we just start off with the plastic wrapped ones, and then that became our sort of biggest seller. And then in 2018, we then decided to stop selling the product wrapped in plastic, discontinue it completely, and switch it for a paper one. Now that was a big risk for us, because we might have said, well, actually 50% of the people will like the plastic version, so they're not going to buy it. But it kind of sort of pivoted the other way. So I think there's always decisions that you have to make as a brand, in terms of your sort of impact and your purpose. And I was, so it's kind of a continuous iteration of, you're always trying to do things better. And one of the things that we get asked a lot, well, if your goods come from China, how does that make it sustainable? And shipping by sea, by ocean freight, is the lowest form of carbon. But if we could have it grown in Europe, that would be great. So maybe at one point in the future, we can grow it in Europe, but there's not any bamboo farms in Europe today. But that doesn't mean to say that there's not going to be there in sort of 4 to 5 years time. So we're always trying to sort of say, what can we improve? And at the end of the day, this is a big category, and if we can actually help inspire the really big brands that are out there, sort of the Andrexes or like the Cushels, to say, actually, we want to do instead of get rid of the plastic in our packaging, then we can make a bigger impact than what we can do as just one company. We can change the whole category.
Yeah, it's interesting. In my my current role, we've gone through the carbon cost of everything, and it was really everything we source is from the Far East, and that's the smallest part of the whole thing.
Yeah,
which really
in the LCA report,
it's counterintuitive, but actually it's the manufacture that is the big thing.
So when we look at our life cycle carbon assessment, and this is kind of sort of a big thing for manufacturing brands, it's like, for us, it's like the bamboo's growing, produces more oxygen and absorbs more carbon, so it's a really nice product from that point of view. It gets cut, then gets transported to a pulping mill, it then gets pulped, it then gets converted. 60% of the carbon is in that process.
Yeah.
To only 10% is in the shipping. So actually, even though people think, oh, it's a big distance, actually it's energy. So even recycled tissue's got a large carbon footprint, and it's got to get collected, and then it's got to be de-inked and bleached, and those chemicals aren't necessarily good for you or your skin. So everything's a bit of an education process, and people can, sort of say, well, why don't you do this or why don't do that? And it's actually, well, actually, if you're doing things better, then that's the best you can ever hope for at any point in time.
And you're B Corp certified, which, having looked at trying to get my own business B Corp certified, it is not easy.
And we were one of the first 100 businesses in the UK to become a B Corp.
Okay.
So we were a B Corp in 2019, and B Corp were a very small organization when they came to sustainable workspaces where we were working in at the time, and said, why don't you do this certification? And I looked at it and went, my God, this is extensive, it's and then one of our employees was, she was extremely passionate about it, and she said, listen, this will do so much for our brand in terms of our framework and governance. And I went, well, at some point in time, frameworks and governance are actually very, very important things to have. So if you can build them in early, then it saves you a fortune down the line. You don't have management consultants from Accenture or PwC running around charging you £1,000 a day, as they do, or more.
And the rest.
And the rest, yeah. So I was like, do you know what? Actually, if you build your house on strong foundations and you put in big pillars, and B Corp definitely puts big pillars in terms of how you treat your people, how you source your products, how you report things, then actually it means as you scale, you're aligning to those principles, and eventually they're the same principles as what public companies have as well. So it's it's really great for scaling, although it's not easy, but it's worth it.
Yeah, but I think you're right. Doing it early means you scale with B Corp, rather than the later you do it, the more stuff you've got to kind of unmake and remake, and start again and reconsider, which makes it.
And when you're a team of 5 people, you kind of wonder, why am I putting in this HR policy? And then when you're a team of 35 people, where we are now, you're like, actually, this is a really good policy. You know, so yeah, sometimes if you're very small, you did it like when we did it, then you kind of sort of look at some of it and go, that's irrelevant, but actually it's relevant. So, you know, it's I mean, I can't talk highly enough about it as a you know, and I think consumer awareness is actually very strong in B Corp now, and people are actually understand it is kind of like a gold standard for brands and for companies. And you know, if we're in an economy where companies are automatically trying to do the right thing, then we're actually going to create, you know, a better environment and a fairer and more equal society, and that just makes everybody's lives a lot happier. And you know, why wouldn't you want that?
Mm-hmm. And as you know, we were chatting the other day. I mean, I spent a lot of my life dealing with your customers, and you know, it's always been a mixed blessing every time I have to talk to them. And one of the things I was wondering is, how much do you think they buy into what you're trying to do, and how much do you think, you know, they're kind of just going along with it, and you know, you need to educate them a bit?
I mean, I think, you know, everybody sells against us, right? So, you know, for the big brands that are the incumbents, it's easier to say why not, and show them data that category and it's relevant, and actually people just want, you know, deforestation products wrapped in plastic. So we've then got to fight that, you know, thing of actually, well, we are sustainable, and bamboo is the world's fastest growing plant. I mean, how can you get something that's better than actually literally the thing that grows the fastest thing on the planet? And we can then, so all the shoppers are going on Amazon because there's no mainstream distribution available within, like, you know, the major supermarkets. I mean, we've got Waitrose and Boots and got great partnerships there, but you know, it definitely feels that we're, you know, we think we're the eighth most recognized sustainable brand in the UK, and that's like alongside Oatly and Tony Chocolonely's and Beyond Meat. It does feel that we should be kind of in that mainstream channel, and I do hope that, you know, it happens at some point, and we just don't have to be an online brand, because then that doesn't really kind of help consumer choice, and you know, the basket spending goes to Amazon. And
what's the main pushback they give you?
Well, we got a lot of buyers changing. That's probably one of our biggest, you know, like so you're in a cycle, and then, you know, in paper, unlike cheese and wine, once you're in cheese and wine, you don't want to leave cheese and wine. You're kind of like, I'm in cheese and wine, I'm happy. In paper, like, I mean, I think we're like in one of our supermarkets, we've had 7 buyers in 5 years. So like everything's just a reset, and it's like, well, I've got to get my head around what's going on in my category. Oh, it's just promotions. Oh, I've just got so much work, and it just becomes very hard to get their head up things, and yeah, and they start building relationships with the incumbents, and it's kind of like, oh well, you know, I don't need to change it, it's not broken. So that's probably, I don't need to change it, it's not broken, is probably our biggest challenge. Whereas we're sort of saying, well, there's so much upside for them, and for the consumers, to switch to more sustainable products, and we've seen that across different categories, and we'd see exactly the same in paper as well.
So you reckon it's inertia as much as anything else?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, having worked with supermarkets a lot, if you do one day's job as a buyer, you understand the inertia, because it's just so full on.
I mean, it's a tough job, right? I mean, it's
exactly.
like, you know, you've got like, you know, if you know, 1,000 supermarkets or something like that, and you know, lots of different stores, and like you're managing multiple different brands in the category, and it's, you know, it does become, maybe I shouldn't be changing it, because I'm KPI'd on some stuff as well, and like, you know, what's my KPIs? And I think if the KPIs kind of come, you know, if we look at something like Sainsbury's, they've kind of got this big messaging about sort of net zero, and you know, we're a net zero product, and they're saying about getting rid of plastic. You know, that should just kind of fit straight in. But sometimes, like, the messages is like at the top, it's not kind of sort of filtering through. So there probably needs to be a little bit of a join in the middle, between, you know, saying grandiose statements and actually delivering them via the products.
Yeah. Do you give them a panda hat?
Yeah, I've given them panda hats, given them free samples.
Yeah, they might remember the panda hat.
I think we've got a I mean, we've got a wonderful mascot actually. We've got a giant panda mascot called Colin. And we're taking him out to store visits, and we've done some really fun stuff and taking him on the tube and in London buses and stuff like that. And we're kind of doing quite a lot of sort of TikTok stuff with that at the moment. And yeah, there's a lot of fun to be had. But that's good for that, because like it's a bit like the Honey Monster used to do that, and a lot of brands don't do that anymore. And I think, you know, having a mascot for a brand is a very cool thing.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, you're right. The Hofmeister bear and the sugar puffs and all that kind of thing. It was a thing for a while, wasn't it?
And we've got Duolingo now as well, and like Duolingo just blows up, and that's, you know, that's the language app, and you know, there's definitely space for you know, really strong creative content that kind of sort of educates as well, and that's the kind of sort of goes back to, you can be fun as a brand and you can have fun as a brand, but you can still be a proper business as well.
Yeah, and as a category, it's relatively low involvement. It's not like wine and cheese, for example. So how do you go about creating that awareness? How do you, what's the most successful way you've developed to create awareness of the subcategory you're in, but also the brand itself?
I think, I mean, we've had a lot of PR. I think, you know, that's one of the things that we've done very well, and you know, talk about, you know, why bamboo is, you know, as a plant is a very, and a bamboo has got lots of different products into the UK now. So a lot of people just kind of know that bamboo is a really good material. So that kind of helps us in sort of saying, well, you know, somebody's done it in like toothbrushes, or somebody's done it in flooring, and now we're doing it in tissue. So there's a general, you know, when I started this business with Julie in 2016, there wasn't much awareness around bamboo. And in 2023, there's just so much more awareness about it as a material. And I think that many hands make light work. And if you've got lots of different people doing lots of good things together, then actually it really starts to build the category. And just trying to do it by yourself solo is a hard slog. But when you've got lots of different people all kind of sort of educating the masses, then it makes it a lot easier.
And about the brand itself?
I mean, I think what we've done is the logo, you know, is we've got a panda with one of a Banksy panda behind me, which is Julie's office. I mean, the logo is iconic. We think, you know, we've got this brand in 25 different countries, and we've had literally no the only marketing spend that we've ever done for the brand has been in the UK. And the fact that we're in France, or we're in Germany, or we're in like stores in like New York or Dubai, and that people just buy it because they like the look of the packaging and the logo. Most brands would just bite your hand off to be able to have something that was able just to sell itself by how it looks.
Yeah, and you know, we talked earlier on about the product quality, which is, you know, you were saying was very good. How much do you think consumers in this space are willing to compromise in order to feel a bit better about what they're doing for purpose or the environment, or you know, and that sort of thing?
I mean, like, cost of living crisis is definitely something that we're in right now, and you know, the energy prices just put everything up, and you know, the disposable income kind of sort of does make people sort of think about their purchase choices. But they're probably more likely to not purchase that car this year, or maybe not have the fancy, you know, ski holiday in Switzerland, and maybe go to Austria, than they are about something that they, you know, feel every day. And actually, when Innocent grew their business, which was in the middle of the financial crisis, actually the data says that people like things that make them feel good at home, and they'll sacrifice the luxury and pay a little bit more for the household. So there is some really good data that does say that even, you know, might be sort of challenging times economically for the average consumer. Some of them will switch, and some of them will just be own brand. 50% of the category is own brand. We're probably never going to get the people that are own brand. You know, they're just buying whatever's on the deal and whatever's cheapest. So, you know, I think we're just playing to the, you know, the more branded side of the market.
Which ought to help you with the retailers. If you're no threat at all to the own brand,
Absolutely no threat whatsoever, you know. Their stuff's always going to be cheaper than my stuff.
Yeah, it ought to help with them, shouldn't it?
Well, yeah, and it's like, you know, some of our stuff's a little bit more premium, so they make more cash margin on us as well. So there's a good, you know, a good cash profit with us.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot more action in this space than I realized when I started to kind of look into it a little bit, because there's Who Gives a Crap, and there's Naked Sprout as well, and there's quite a lot more going on than I thought, because I thought I was only aware of Cheeky Panda. How big do you think you can grow that segment?
I mean, if you sort of said, actually, what could bamboo be, and UK is kind of like an early adopter within the bamboo space. It's just an early adopter than Europe, for example. You know, where should it be? Maybe it should be 10% of the category by 2027. But that means the categories then, you know, 200 categories, 2 billion in paper in retail. So it should be about 200 million by 27. And Cheeky Panda can have a percentage of that. And if there's other brands that have got a percentage of that, that's fine as well. You know, at the end of the day, we were the first people in the UK to sell 100% bamboo tissue. You know, we were the original ones, and I think that the original idea and the people that execute it, you know, they're always seen as the trailblazers, and they always kind of get that halo effect from consumers. And I don't think, you know, even if somebody came in, a private equity company came in and just did a pure copycat, I think it would, that authenticity would be missing.
Now, I've worked for, you know, some of those companies that you compete against, you know, the world of nappies and wipes and so on, and you know, these tend to be categories where they're big, and there's big promo, not so much advertising, but big promo budgets in particular. Do you worry that, you know, you might just get, for want of a better word, squashed by the scale that they can kind of bring to bear, if, you know, if they decide just to wipe the category out on a buy one get one free or something like that? Or do you think there's sustainability for the business per se?
I think for Cheeky Panda, people buy Cheeky Panda because it's Cheeky Panda, and they're more likely to buy other products with Cheeky Panda because it's Cheeky Panda. I think one of the biggest problems or challenges the other manufacturers have got is everything's called something different. So even if they went after us in the toilet paper, they can't, you know, they would have to go after us in toilet paper and kitchen towel and baby wipes and, you know, like a whole range of different products, and they're all called different things. I mean, if you look at, like, you know, KC, it's Andrex, or it's Kleenex, or it's like Pampers, or it's, you know, it's Bounty, you know, all these names are different, right? So it's very inefficient from a marketing point of view. But you look at something like Apple, for example, is a great example, right? Anytime that Apple releases a new product, people just know it's an Apple product, it's going to be high quality. And Cheeky Panda has been able to achieve that, is the fact that, you know, we're a brand that's quality and it's trusted. And if we release a new product, then actually it can just cross-sell within its own brand. So yeah, potentially they could come along and basically, you know, for a couple of months, you know, just dominate the rates of sale, but they're probably not going to make any money. And we'll be there when the rates of sale, once those promos come off, people will just go back to buying us again.
Mm. Do you think they could, how easy would it be for them to buy up all the bamboo production in China and just, you know, steal your lunch sort of thing?
I mean, I can't really think of any examples where like one of the really big companies have done that to a challenger brand. You know, you've seen some things like Giles Brooks, one of my non-executive directors, and he was the European CEO for Vito Coco. Yeah, we did certainly see some challenges around the coconut water space, and you know, they diversified a little bit within their supply chain, so that originally they were getting it from Brazil, and then they started getting it from like Indonesia and the Philippines, and you know, had a more of a global market. So if somebody came into one market and started buying it all up, they'd actually had more longer term strategic stuff. And I think some of that is kind of like part of like our thinking as well. And, you know, at the end of the day, we welcome, you know, the larger brands trying to get into bamboo because it validates the category. And for us, that's the best thing that could ever happen, is to validate the category, because we are the incumbent. We are the original.
Mm-hmm. Just a reminder for folks, if they've got questions, to put them in the chat, and in about 5 to 10 minutes we'll come back and we'll go through some of the questions in the chat as well. What do you think? I mean, I know you're going to tell me there's a long way to go still, but on the journey so far, what do you think the hardest part has been?
We see more black swans these days than we see white swans. And, I think pretty much every single year that I've been in this business, there's been something that's come up that's been completely unexpected for the business plan. So in our first year, we based everything on like purchasing stuff at like 150 on the dollar because we were buying in dollars and we're selling in sterling. And then the dollar sterling collapsed down to 125. Then we had Brexit. Then we had a pandemic. Then we had a supply chain crisis. Then we had a war. Now we've got an energy crisis. Now we've got a cost of living crisis. It's kind of like every single year. It's real resilience actually from us as a business that we can actually go through so many different challenges. And any other brand that's kind of out there that's listening to this, and I take my hat off to you that you've been able to adapt and sort of get your way through this, because I mean, even the larger brands, and for the retailers, everybody's been in this continuous thing. And part of my personal belief is that the world's warming. We're going to get 1.5% climate change basically has come out in the news today that says that's pretty much going to happen. And it means that supply chains are going to be stretched, and there's always going to be more things that keep going. So we'll keep ending up in these crises until the world can kind of get more circular with itself. And if there can be brands like Cheeky Panda that are actually mainstream, then actually that's going to be a big way to making that impact. And I think just some points in terms of like, how do you measure that? And I think we're one of the few brands that we can stand around and say, well, in our products, based upon if they were just using trees, the amount of bamboo we sold, you need to have 400,000 trees equivalent to be being cut down instead of just like a grass. So that's a massive impact. And if we get bigger, then that could be 10 times that. We've saved 500,000 kilos of plastic by making sure there's no plastic in our wipes, and then making sure that whatever possible, the packaging is made out of paper. And through our net zero carbon strategy, we've saved 30,000 tons of carbon. These are big numbers, but these are big numbers that can be a lot bigger if we grow bigger. And if like I said, many hands make light work. And there's a big challenges in the world today. And if brands have got their big part to play in it, and we can be part of that.
Yeah. I was speaking to a banker a few weeks ago, and he was saying that your point about black and white swans. He said, normally he would look at accounts and things like that, and there would be a one-off. And most years there was a one-off. And he said the past couple of years, every set of accounts he looks at, there are multi-offs every year now, which is your point. It's like you think it's going to be a one-off, but next year there's another whole load of one-offs as well. And there's more than one in every single year.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think that's going to, I don't think this is that's going to be more frequency than what we had. I'd just love it just to be, the pricing to be the same, and from 2015 previously for the last 15 years, apart from the financial crisis, it was actually quite steady, and there was less of these events. So, but unfortunately, we live in. You have to just be agile as businesses, and being able to risk manage things very quickly.
And how do you drive that kind of agility in the organization?
Lean, very lean, right?
As in you lean on them, or you are very lean?
Well, what we have now is everybody's an expert in the team, right? So there's not lots of people telling other people what to do. So there's actually just everybody's kind of like we do an 80% do, 20% mentor manage. And I think that's a really great way to run a business. And if you've got everybody that's hands-on and actually a detail in the weeds, or in the bamboo in our case, then it means that when you need to change things, you don't need to have management by committee, because you actually already 2 or 3 people know how to quickly shift things.
One of the things I remember looking at in a previous business was, what percentage of my organization was outwardly focused and what percentage was inwardly focused, which is very similar to what you're saying, that kind of 80-20. Sometimes it's quite scary. how many people are just moving bits of paper around rather than actually going out and
we're anti moving bits of paper around, even digital paper.
Sending on an invoice or whatever. Yeah. And what's your vision for the business? Where do you think you're going to take it?
I mean, my vision, and like, you can set waypoints in the sand, is what I say. If you set a waypoint and you get to within sort of 15 degrees left or right of that waypoint, then you've actually done like a really good job. And I think, you can, that's all you can ever do as sort of like a business leader. I'd love to take it to the public market. I'd love to take it to the public market and IPO this business next year. Whether the markets will be ready for a green consumer goods business next year, that's another matter entirely. Whether somebody wants to try to come in and acquire us before, as part of that process, then again, that's another thing. But I definitely do think that, that I've spoke to the London Stock Exchange, and there's a very few lack of consumer goods businesses in the market. There's probably Hotel Chocolat and Fever Tree. And I think, for us, we could be an inspiration to a lot of entrepreneurs, is that they don't have to sell to Procter & Gamble, or they don't have to sell to a Coca-Cola or a Nestle, that they could actually live in the public markets and benefit from the public markets and maybe become 21st versions of those companies. And I think it sets a really high standard for other entrepreneurs to maybe sort of follow us.
And if you were, if there's someone on the call here today who's thinking about setting up a purpose-led consumer business, after the few years of experience on this that you've got, what would you advise them? What would be the hard knocks or whatever that you think, okay, that's something everyone should, you didn't realize, but everyone should know?
I think probably the one thing that money is not easy to come by, and even in the good times, the money is not easy to come by. And some people are just great storytellers about getting money, but not actually executing it, and can be quite frustrating if you're a good executor but not the best storyteller. So when we started this business, this started as a side hustle, and we didn't pay ourselves for 18 months. So every single penny that we made into the business, all went back into the business, and we were able to survive that. We were able to pay the mortgage and pay the bills. So we had enough resources. What you don't want to do as an entrepreneur, it's going to be stressful enough as it is anyway. If you're then stressing about paying the bills while you're trying to build a company, what you should try to do is maybe try to create enough of a buffer for yourself, so that when you do start your company, it's not all or nothing, and you actually can fall back and stuff, and you don't lose the house or something like that. So it's probably, keep it lean, keep it mean. Other people will always sell to you, and like the people are great at selling stuff that you don't need. So you got to say, as a founder, if you do this and we'll take you here. And I can't remember how many emails I get a day from people that will tell me they'll 10x my sales if I give them some money. So I just kind of sort of say, be a cynical, create a little bit of headroom for yourself financially. But if you believe in it, then other people will believe in it as well, and just go for it.
Managing stock must be complicated.
It's we have a stock system, thankfully, but we didn't have
it can tie up a lot of cash if you got it on the water for 6 weeks or something like that.
And getting the bank to fund that stuff before you're 3 years, once you're sort of 3 years old, then yeah, you start to be able to get access to finance. But in the first 3 years of a startup, you've got no access to bank capital. They just don't lend to you. So yeah. It's something that sorry. Yeah, so yeah, that's probably my biggest tip, is just sort of expect that
You okay, Chris? We're all still here.
Sorry, someone's trying to distract me over there. So
I see. I thought maybe we'd disappeared off.
No, trying to get rid of them. Sorry. Probably not realize I'm on a webinar. So probably biggest tips, just the finance isn't easy. It gets easier as you get older. Like stock systems, we put in NetSuite, which was we put it in when we're doing £2 million turnover. If you are managing and having stock forecasting systems are very, very important. It'll save you a lot of heads. because you don't have to have a big operations staff and you have a less of a finance team. So if you can invest in the technology as quickly as possible, because it costs a lot more money to rip out the old stuff and put the new stuff in, again, you'll be paying a fortune for consultants at some point.
Yeah, I know that from bitter experience.
Well, I used to work on that side of the fence, for many years. So
poacher term gamekeeper.
Yeah.
So look, it's about this time we turn it over to the questions from other people, and there's a few things in the chat come through. There does seem to be a lot of demand for the hats.
Yeah, like I said, on the website,
£100 for Panda points, and you get
Panda points. Yeah, get your Panda points, get the hats, buy the Panda points.
There's a question here about, in the early days. This is from Shri. How did you get consumers to adopt in the early days? What were the biggest challenges there?
We did a lot of sampling. We did a lot of guerrilla marketing. We basically had these bins and just basically took them out into the street, and we did quite a lot of shows. Natural Organic Show, some of the eco shows, Veg Fest, stuff like that. It's a great way to be able to interact with consumers. And at the very early stages, you're looking for sort of early adopters. So you need to kind of go to places that early adopters are going to look for new products, and they impulse buy. And if you've got good products, they impulse buy, but then they become customers. So you just have to kind of look for people that are into that sort of, I'll take a risk even though I don't know the brand.